Welcome back to Making Connections, the show where a guest and I take a deep dive into a newly released machine video by reacting to it and then slowly and painstakingly analyzing it frame by frame. In this episode, we're taking a look at mini basketball trick shots by the Invention 11, and joining us on the show yet again, the Invention 11.
Hello, everyone. And I know you can't see me right now, but I am, in fact, not just on the show, but I'm on the set of Making Connections in person. We're in the Making Connections office right now. We had a bit of technical difficulty setting up, but we should have everything ready to go. But yeah, so I've been working on this video for nearly 2 years now. Not like entirely. Obviously, there were a few videos and some change in between. But back in 2020, I had sort of thought of this video concept because at Mini Golf Machine, which was towards the end of 2019, Lyle had gave me this like little mini plastic basketball net thing, and
it's actually in Mini Golf Machine.
It is in Mini Golf Machine.
It's the thing that the 8-ball launches into.
Yeah, the 8-ball launches into it and it dispenses it. So that's something that exists. But yeah, so Lyle didn't really have much of a use for it, so he ended up giving it to me. And I had the idea for a while that I thought it would be really cool if I had like a ping pong ball with like a basketball design on it, and then I made a bunch of 1-ball paths or mini machines, in which the goal of each machine was to dunk the ball in the net, because it's just like the perfect size for a ball to fit inside. It's pretty satisfying, and that's what I did. That's what I came up with. In 2020, I made like 3 clips, and then the video kind of became lost to the world for a little while, but then I picked back up on it after Reactica 2021, or Reactica 2020, I guess, or 2021. I'm confused. Okay. It was after Everest, after that machine that I made
2021
that had that theme. Yeah, 2021. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's done. It's the video is ready for Lyle's enjoyment.
Yeah. So I kind of don't know a lot about it, which is the way I like to go into watching these videos. So without any further ado, I'm just gonna pull it up and let's see what we got. All right, starting with like the most basic iteration, just to set the stage. Okay. Oh, okay. All right. I like the set dressing of making it look like an actual basketball hoop. What the? Oh no! I was gonna do something like that. I love it.
Centrifugal force.
I love it. Centrifugal force. Okay. What the? Oh wow!
A little bit of archery.
Okay. What? Oh! Oh, that one's my favorite so far. That's brilliant. That's so brilliant. Huh? Huh? Oh, wow. Never would have thought to do that, ever. Oh no, oh no. This is gonna be good, I can tell already. Interesting. Oh wow, precision, because yeah. Yep. Alright. What? Oh my god! Oh cool, end as well. The clock hands, though. Man, how has no one thought to do that before?
I'm sure people have. It's very difficult, is why.
Okay, I did know this was coming up. The,
clip number 8, let's go!
Clip number 8 was the Reactica clip.
Uh-huh.
Lovely. So good. What on earth? Okay, so there's a hole. What? Wait, what? Oh. So it rolls inside, and then the wheel itself rolls. Okay. Wow. This one is my favorite. What? All the orange. So many orange connectors. Yeah. Oh, this one's good too. Those two are my favorite.
The clock is my personal favorite.
I can understand why.
Yeah.
I love the downloaded file without an end screen.
Yeah, it's very cursed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh my. We've got a lot to discuss.
We have got quite a bit to get through. But yeah, there we go. That was mini basketball tricks. Everyone is hooting and hollering over clip 8. The elusive Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Which, yes, if you didn't know what Lyle was talking about, basically there is a clip that already is out online, that was released in 2020, which is the Ferris wheel clip towards the end, the second last trick. I built it for this video, but I thought it would be a really nice. It was just perfectly coinciding with Reactica 2020, what they were doing for that year, which is just demonstrating a single trick and doing a little analysis on that. Or just talking through the process of making it. So if you guys want to go check that out, that would be cool as well, because that also offers a bit of an in-depth look into exactly how I was making it in the process, because it has been 2 years since then. So
yeah. So I knew this was probably the case when I saw this as the intro clip, that they get progressively more complex and intricate.
Pretty much. I mean, like I tried to sort them so that was the case, but it didn't. Like, the way it turned out was there was maybe one or two kind of intricate tricks, but for the most part, they're all around the same level of complexity, which I think is perfectly fine, because they're each just demonstrating like one main concept, and there's not a ton beyond that. There's obviously some little connection doohickeys and stuff here and there that add a bit of spice and a bit of complexity, but for the most part I thought the tricks were pretty equal in terms of complexity, but also in terms of just likability.
I wasn't expecting like the thumbnail to be like actually in the video. I thought it was like a Photoshop thing, but it is very photoshopped, because the basketball is not real in the thumbnail. Well, the guy like holding the ball.
The guy is real.
I thought that was just like for the sake of the thumbnail.
Yeah, I made a mini little. Yeah, so this was just a part of the theming. You can see that, like, the way I hooked up the basketball net, I printed off a little backboard out of paper for the basketball net to give it that aesthetic, and then obviously I printed out the little man and made a mini launcher, so he's like chucking the ball with each of the throws.
Yeah, so the launcher is the same module every time, but sometimes it is more of a launch, sometimes it's just more of a ball lift.
Yeah, I make modifications to it depending on what the clip requires.
Yeah.
And also depending on, sometimes it was like the reliability of the clip. If it was like, if I was a little more concerned about that, then I wouldn't like do a massive launch at the very beginning, because sometimes like it's not always going to be 100% accurate.
Right. Yeah, so let's take a look. So first one is just setting the stage, just sort of establishing a pattern, establishing the format.
Yeah, this is clip number 0.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
This isn't like quote unquote a clip.
It's not an official trick.
Yeah.
It's just a demonstration of the theme.
Yep. So ball launch, a simple bounce, right in the net.
Yep.
All right. So there's just a regular ball lift that time. This reminds me of the paper thing from 11 Inventions 4. Just the wave pushing a ball.
Yeah. It's a very similar idea to that. It's a much better version of that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And it's a cool foreign object usage. Basically, so I've had this dryer tube for ages, probably since 2018. And I've used it in a video before. I used it in 1199 towards the end,
the pendulum,
just as a track. But I had thought of this idea. Essentially, I had thought of this idea basically since the very beginning of me getting this tube. I had never really officially written it down on any idealist or like drew it, but it was just sort of a thing that I was like, oh, it'd be cool if you did like a little wave effect of like having a ball go through, and then it sort of translates the ball like, I don't know, up a couple centimeters, and then creates a really cool wave motion. And I had tried to build it at some point before, but it was sort of a mixture of, I don't know if I was that skilled enough to like make a really clean looking foreign object trick of like this scale, but I also just didn't have like the right materials. This is one of the last clips I built, so one of the last clips I built, so I have all the new materials I got earlier this year with like the wooden boxes and stuff like that adds a really nice
I was going to ask about that, because I noticed over on the right side it's just a couple nice wooden boxes.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling those were the new ones. What about the giant plank of wood? Is that just like...
That's just, I have that lying around my building space. I used it in 2 clips in this video.
I saw that. Which was the other one?
It was the giant wheel at the very end.
Right.
Yeah. But
also, what are these? This looks like a circle under here. What is?
Yeah, that's just a wooden circle.
Wait, but
it's just a wooden circle. It's basically a coaster, kind of, but it's a bit thinner. I got them off like Amazon. Like I got some square ones.
They're just aesthetic,
and some circular ones. They are so. It's
what is their purpose?
It's a bit like, it's like a slightly aesthetic, but it was mostly to have an extension off so that I could secure those marble tracks off to the very side of it, because they have to be super secure. Because you might notice that in this clip, the wave motion, the one way I could have done this clip is had both the front end and the back end of the tube completely secure. But I don't think that would have looked nearly as nice, because it doesn't complete like a full wave motion all the way to the end, because the first one would stay sturdy and you wouldn't really start seeing the wave motion until about halfway through. But the solution I came up with to make it a little more elegant and a little bit better is I have the top not 100% secure. It's secured horizontally, but it's not secured vertically. And so it's just sort of resting atop. And then there's little connect rods with those tan pieces sticking into 2 marble tracks on either side. And they can just go up and down along the marble tracks freely. Yeah, and it just adds, it just makes the wave effect more visual. It makes it pop more. Because I wanted to do everything I could to make sure, because it's a very simple trick. I wanted to make sure I executed it as eloquently as possible. One other thing I can mention is that this is the first instance of me using a technique that you actually taught me about.
Oh, this is the double.
Yeah,
the double pulley.
Yeah, so
you sent me a picture of this, and I was like, there are 2 pulleys right side by side. I was wondering what that was about, but I see that now.
It's a little hard to tell when you're watching the clip, but basically the length of the board is taller than the height of the table. And so I guess a possible solution to that would have been to raise the table up, but it would have been kind of an inconvenience, especially considering there's a much better solution. This isn't actually the first time I used that technique. That's in a future clip in this video, but it was the second time. I knew about it already, and it was very useful the first time, and it was even more useful this time because it was a longer distance. So
you're welcome.
Thank you. And also, this clip doesn't use any sliders as well, which is surprising.
Yeah.
It's literally like the connects on the side of that little module is just basically hooked into the board, and it just slid fine like that. It didn't need anything else, as long as I was pulling it from both ends.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the double pulleys help it stay synchronized too.
Yep. And this clip also only took 1 day to build.
Oh, was that the last one you made?
No, it was the second last one.
Second.
I had plenty of time left over after after the very last one as well, surprisingly.
Oh, this. Okay, yeah. I forgot about this. Yes.
Yeah. This is another one of my favorites that I made.
This is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is an idea that I kind of had. I don't know. My idea was mostly just ball in cup centrifugal force.
Yeah, I mean, basically mine was too.
But I don't know if I would have done exactly this had I gotten the chance to build it. But now I'm not going to.
I mean, my idea wasn't initially exactly this. It just sort of came together. Like one difference between my initial idea and the final result, one big difference is you can see that the actual cylinder that the string is wrapping around is pretty thick, so it doesn't have a ton of rotations before it finishes.
Yeah.
That was initially going to be much thinner. Mm-hmm. But there are two main issues with that. One is like maintaining a consistent speed while it wraps.
It's not that fast.
Yeah, and then the other main issue is having it be secure when it finishes. So when the cup is fully wrapped around, the cup needs to be like fully upside down, and you don't want it to like swing back around the other side. You don't want it to like be wobbly or whatever.
Right.
So with the cylinder, it's not only easy. Or easy, relatively easy to get it so that it's like perfectly upside down, like regardless of how it decides to wrap around. But there's room for a little magnet on the side, which I also put on.
Oh.
That keeps it a little extra secure. When it locks into place, just a little tiny thing, and it kind of just goes. Boop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Is it on the rim of the cup?
There's a little tiny metal piece on the cup, I believe. And the magnet is on the cylinder. It's not super strong. It's just like it's just guaranteed that the final position of the cup will be facing down. Also, like I mentioned before, with those like circle plates, those are the square plates that the ball bounces into.
Okay.
The square tiles, yeah.
Yeah. Man.
And then obviously this was another one of the clips that was built in 2022. As opposed to 2020. You can tell because there's a lot of the wooden tracks, there's the marble track, there's all sorts of wooden pieces.
A wooden track?
And
I thought you already had wooden track.
The wooden marble tracks is what I'm referring to.
Oh, the little tiny things.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously the height is much taller than you would normally have seen me build in the past. And that's because I have more opportunity to build taller tricks now because I have more wooden boxes and blocks and am able to. I don't have to conserve materials to build tall, basically.
It's really nice, isn't it?
It is very nice.
I recently made the exact same change and finally got things that help make my machines taller. Like 4 nice wooden boxes of one size, and then a couple more of another size, and then a couple more of varying sizes that are smaller. And my God, the difference is night and day.
Yeah.
Just not having to worry about anything taller than 6 inches and be like, how am I going to make it that tall? I'm just going to have to use all my wood supports, and it's going to be flimsy and structurally unsound.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be made out of connects, and it's going to be all still not that strong, and it'll look really mechanical and distracting.
Yeah, and I mean, it adds, like you mentioned with the connects, like it adds a variety to my style that wasn't quite there before. And that's because like before I would pretty much build every structure out of connects because that was like the one material that I had a sufficient amount of to be able to do that with. But yeah, now I have these. And it looks very nice.
Changed my style in a way that I did not anticipate, like pretty instantly. I'm suddenly just totally comfortable building high. And like previously I'd be like, okay, nothing over 6 inches tall because it's just going to be a headache.
Yeah.
But now it's just like, sure, I'll build a trick and then literally elevate it a foot off the ground or a foot off the table. Just on purpose. Like not even because it's necessary. Like, just to add some variety to the machine, just to add some height. It really helps.
Wooden blocks and clear double-sided tape are like the recent developments in my life that have been the biggest game changers.
Yeah, join the club.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one, I really like this one, though. I'll have to see if I can still make the idea I wanted to make. Because mine, it was a little different now that I see this again.
And then the little ball lift at the end.
Oh yeah, how does that trigger? Is it just
there's a little tiny latch that the ball runs over as it goes into the cup.
Nice. And then slam dunk.
Yeah.
Oh, I really like how the cup doesn't actually touch the net.
Yeah.
That's super smooth. It's calculated perfectly.
Yeah, it just kind of worked out like that.
That's really nice.
Yeah, I love that ball lift. 2 little ball translators.
Okay, bow and arrow time.
Yeah, this is the bow and arrow that I got from Pool Party Machine.
Oh, right. This is the one I used.
Yeah, Steve said I could have it. Lyle made a trick with it in Pool Party Machine. And yeah, the idea is very, very simple, but it's just shoot ball into cup.
The domino slide out of road pieces.
Yeah, those road pieces. Which, by the way, fun fact, those road pieces were originally Steve's, and you can go way back to his like oldest videos, and you can see them in there, like Summer Machine and all those, Chicago Machine.
Wow,
some classic piece of memorabilia.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah.
How is this released? Let me just figure it out. Oh, okay. I see a. Okay. Oh, yeah. I think I figured it out. Or maybe, yes.
Frame by frame.
Maybe? Well, I see that there's something... I don't remember how the actual thing... How do you actually, like, use the toy? Like, if you were just using it as a toy, you just release it with your finger?
Yeah, you just release it with your hands. There's no latch that comes with the toy.
There's no latch naturally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing the red rod that gets pulled down, and it looks as though there's some piece here that's holding it somehow.
Yeah. And basically what it is similar to those metal rods you gave me. The arrows.
I don't know where it goes, though. Where does that piece go?
It doesn't go anywhere. It stays on it. If you watch it fall down or whatever, it'll be... Yeah, see, it's still there. Yeah, still there. It's just one of those mini light blue or whatever.
Yeah, the end caps.
The end caps, yeah. And it's secured on there already pretty good, but I also glued it for safe measure. And yeah, it's just latched in there with a rod that gets pulled down.
I see.
And then that allows it to. With a block
I got it. I was there. I figured it out. I just wasn't sure about where the blue part went, but it doesn't went anywhere.
Yep. And then this was one of the clips that was built in 2020, so you can kind of tell there's a lack of blockage in some areas, but for the most part, for the most part, it's still there's
I kind of feel like you would have made this pretty much the same way had you made it today.
Basically, like swap out maybe some of those connect rods for blocks, and then that's basically it.
Yeah.
It's simple enough to the point where I was able to use a variety of supports and materials. But it is quite satisfying.
And then another ball lift.
This is the basic ball lift.
Calculated.
It is calculated. That one definitely was calculated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
This one you said you liked.
This is maybe my favorite. I like the clock.
I'm glad you like it.
But this is so genius. This is the kind of idea that I only could wish to have.
The walking tricks.
On a consistent basis. Well, that is cool, but that's not really what I meant by this kind of trick. I just mean the tricks that are so deceptively simple, and they just feel obvious. They just feel like you should have thought of it. It just feels like, dang, this is such a good idea, built out of just flexing parallelograms, which like are my babies. I love them.
Lots of orange.
And there's nothing like crazy complex about it. It's literally just carrying, and it's just a flexing parallelogram, but it does something that we haven't seen before by just changing one small thing. Just because we've seen tricks with basically take this black track, turn it 45 degrees, and that's been a trick that we've seen.
Yep.
In either direction. Turn it 45 degrees so that it's like in line with, this track, so it's just like front to back or from side to side. Those tricks have been done. And yet, turning it 45 degrees and having it sideways, sort of at an angle, somehow, no one thought to do this yet.
Well, it's possible someone thought to do it, but it's similar to...
no one
it's
did,
similar,
though.
It is,
no one did it. That's my point. No one has done this, and it's like... And I don't mean to say that it's boring because it's so easy, and it's just like, well, obviously, it's not that hard to think of. these are the hardest ideas to think of.
Yeah.
And I say that no joke. Because it's very, very difficult to spot things that haven't been done using really simple elements. And coming up with, we've talked about this in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Like anyone can name a 300-digit number that no one has ever said before, but pick a 2-digit number and like that no one has ever thought of. It's impossible. You know, and it's so much harder to come across new things that feel completely, totally original when the ingredients are so few. And the ingredients here are really just flexing parallelograms.
Yep.
And, like, that is genuinely it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of...
And, flexing parallelograms and a massive table tilt that you can't really see just how big it is, but it's a big table tilt. Yeah, it's actually, I think it's the only clip in the video that has a table tilt, but... Yeah.
See, I don't even know if I thought of the idea of doing like a flexing parallelogram and then putting we keep saying flexing parallelogram. That's not even the term anymore, remember?
Flexogram?
It's flexogram now. If I thought of the idea of putting a 45-degree angle track on a flexogram, I don't think I would have thought of this. So there is definitely an element of like ingenuity and like actual genius at play here. Because I don't think I would have realized that this pattern is possible. Like the way that... Because in order for this to work, the tracks have to line up perfectly.
Yep.
And the track has to just mesh, like, overlap perfectly with the end of this one. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I would have thought this was possible. Because just going through the geometry of it in my mind, it's not obvious to me that it would do that.
Yeah, see, I'm... my brain's small, so when I think of an idea like this,
see, that's the thing. It doesn't really work like this. Oh, it does, yeah, it does. Man, my brain is hurting. Yeah, because I'm... yeah, no, it does work. I thought that for a sec that there was like some weird angle to compensate for it, but genuinely, no, they are perfectly parallel to the side of the table. It's just that the tracks are 45 degrees. That's what's throwing me off.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just going to say I have small brain, so I wouldn't normally... I would... Like, if I think of a trick like this, I wouldn't have the thought of, oh, maybe this isn't possible. I'd probably just be like, oh, yeah, I mean, it seems simple enough. Just, like, put tracks at an angle and then make them walk or something and make them slide. It was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. So this was actually the last trick I made. I built it in 2 days. It wasn't the last trick I had planned. I had this trick planned out since I had like 3 clips left to build. I had this idea. But I was initially going to tackle it. I initially wanted to make it out of Trick's track, but like I was like not getting anywhere near secure enough to make me happy. So Hot Wheels it was. But
so the difficulty is just from how to mount it?
Mounting it was part of the difficulty.
Degrees?
The other difficulty was, I mean, like once again, I mentioned a massive table tilt. So like making these tracks line up with the thing being equal requires a track that's actually slanted up. So it requires the tracks to be slanted up so that they can meet each other at the correct positions for the ball to just roll onto the next one. So it requires a table tilt, which is why you see those yellow rods with the red connectors underneath each of the tracks. That's adding a bit of an incline, upward incline to the tracks.
Or it would require this initial position to be higher than when it flips.
Yeah, but that poses another problem, which is getting them to line up properly. But yeah,
right.
This was definitely a tricky one.
Right, because if it was higher, it'd slightly overlap.
Mm-hmm. And then there's some little connects levers on the right side to reduce vibrations.
Yep.
That snap with little magnets so that they stop moving after they snap into place.
I didn't notice that. I noticed the shock absorbers, but I didn't notice that they like click into place. Yep. So that they're not.
It's because it bothered me when it just shook.
All janky. Yeah. These are the kinds, yeah. These are the kinds of ideas. They just have a moment when I watch them, and I just go, dang, I should have thought of that. They feel so natural. They feel like discoveries rather than inventions.
Thank you.
And those are the tricks I strive to make and hardly ever do.
11 Discoveries, episode 1.
I mean, that would be your best video. Because, like, tricks like these are rare.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I don't mean anything about how they work. I just mean the vibe they give off of just, like, that's so genius, but so simple.
Yeah, it comes from the simplicity of it's all familiar motions and familiar angles and paths, but they all come together in a new way that's also simple and digestible.
And this is why originality is so elusive. I talked about this a little bit on Discord, but I was saying that originality is such a hard thing to pin down because it's actually pretty rare to see literal exact copies, like exact identical copies of tricks that have been done before. Like most builders don't do that.
Yeah.
You see it occasionally, and especially with like the really basic stuff. You see people do classic like vanilla Newton's cradles and ball unwinds around pole and like
basic ball
auto
lifts.
tilt and basic ball lifts. That stuff, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people just literally recreating an entire, 11 Inventions clip or something, and like saying that it's their own, or not even saying it's their own, but just building it again for whatever reason. You just don't see that often. So by definition, pretty much everything that people build within the community is original. Like by definition, it just hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
And yet, like proper originality, like things that you watch and you go, wow, that I have never seen that before, it's so much rarer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because like surely everything would feel that way if it hasn't been done before. But there are a ton of tricks that have elements that are arranged in ways that we haven't seen before, but that still don't feel totally original.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't put my finger on exactly what makes them feel that way. It depends on the trick. But
yeah, part of it might come down to originality of, there's different ways to incorporate originality. There's originality of mechanically. There's originality of like pathing wise and shape, which I think is coming into play here. And then just originality of motion. But in terms of this, I think that this in particular is originality in terms of shape and pathing, having that idea of like having those like rectangle shapes like align in that particular way that are equidistant from each other. So even though it utilizes all things that are like super familiar in order to accomplish that, like the actual shape and path, similar, I guess, like I could compare it to another, like maybe the like.
Well, I'm actually now realizing that this is more or less the same motion as the trick that Gabe did, where it was like a zigzag board.
I was going to mention that as well.
It just moves the zigzag parts to catch the ball as it rolls down.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, that didn't give me the same reaction that this did, even though that was before this.
Yeah, I do think it has something to... Well, first of all, it has... Timing might be related, considering that was on a board with like a ball, and then this is like creating its own individual paths.
Yeah. But still, I mean, I don't know.
Part of it, I think, might be what you could call like the jigsaw puzzle effect of like this trick is sort of like with Gabe's trick, it was just the rods that were like being descended down to complete a path, whereas this is sort of like solving its own puzzle in a sense of like you have track paths. And then you have empty space, just like nothing there, literally nothing. And I wanted to make sure that there was nothing in the middle to maximize that effect. And then it literally like locks itself perfectly into those two positions, which creates that sort of jigsaw path creation effect, but also demonstrates that motion or demonstrates that shape idea, which is that those two rectangles can fit together perfectly consistently if you keep walking them along.
That's what to me feels the most original. That's to me the one, like the element that makes me that got me excited about this trick when I saw it. is that realization that like this is possible to have the tracks, which in their essence are just rectangle shapes.
Yeah.
And they can do this sort of walking motion and line up perfectly, and then so that's what. Yeah, that is not the only thing that makes the trick cool, and I think that's what you're getting at. That there are all these elements, like the jigsaw puzzle effect, that you're sort of getting at, that also make it cool, that you just kind of don't necessarily realize. Because, I don't know. The motion itself is not new now that I think about it, because it has been done. But just this particular application of like the tessellation that it can like continue on.
Yeah, and particularly because Gabe's was the primary difference between these two tricks, aside from the fact that it's an individual track path and flexing parallelograms and whatnot. The main difference is that the actual shape of Gabe's, I'm kind of demonstrating this in person to Lyle, so it's a little hard to describe, but they're further apart so that they can slide down past each other, whereas mine are close together. So they have to be able to layer on top of each other.
That's what it is.
So the flexogram is necessary. You have to have something like a flexogram or something, pull it out and push it back in order for that to be possible.
So
with
that's
tracks.
True.
Whereas
that is it.
A zigzag board, it's possible if you just pull it straight down, and that's less motion, obviously, as well, and it's less of a jigsaw puzzle in that sense because it's not completing that.
This gets at another element of machines that I strive for, which is elegance, and it's especially. The best way I could describe it is just that every motion is there for a reason, and it's like the motion that is being demonstrated is necessary to accomplish whatever trick is being performed. And I think, not to like put down Gabe's trick at all, but that motion that uses the flexing parallelograms to move the zigzag pieces could just be done with sliders. You could just slide those pieces. It makes it cooler to use flexograms, but it's not like totally necessary for the trick to work. Whereas here, it's elegant because the flexogram is literally necessary.
It's pivotal.
It's what allows it's what unlocks the new idea.
Yeah, the fact that something so well known and simple unlocks something else that's brand new.
I like
to be possible.
I like using the analogy of unlocking because that's how I think of a lot of my ideas. Is I think of a motion usually first, and I even have a document of machine ideas, and most of them are incomplete. Most of them are just ideas for motions.
Yep.
They're not really ideas for actual tricks, and they usually need some kind of companion to make it a full trick worth building, and it's often that element of unlocking that I'm chasing after. Like, this motion is cool, but what does it unlock? What does it allow you to do that you couldn't do with any other motion? What track paths could I make? What kind of motion? What kind of rearrangement? What kind of, you name it. Does this particular motion allow you to unlock that nothing else does? And finding that is the essence of a really elegant trick, in my opinion, and that's what I'm chasing for.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about the clock one soon because that's the exact feeling that trick gives me, is that feeling of like using a very familiar motion to unlock a completely new. Anyway, we'll get into that later because that's not even the next trick. But
let's continue on because we can. A lot of the things we're going to talk about are more general.
Fun little basketball net.
Yeah.
Get a ball lift net.
Yeah, a lot of things we're going to talk about are just general anyway, and they can apply to pretty much all the tricks here. This one is nuts. Okay, so this is, I love tricks like this. I love all the tricks you make, but tricks like this, I just can sit back, turn my brain off, and just completely enjoy because
You'd never make it.
Because, yes, you're getting ahead of me, but exactly. When I see a trick like the last one that's so genius, and I'm just like, I should have thought of that. That's so genius. There's a little part of me that is like annoyed by that, and like, it's you can't help but feel that. Whereas this, it's I can just totally enjoy it because I'm just like, well, okay. I mean,
this exists.
I don't have to feel bad about not thinking of this because I never would have thought of
your mind.
Never would have crossed my mind.
So this is sort of
this thing is insane.
Yeah, so this is It is very interesting.
How do you think of this?
Yeah, this is... So basically, I saw... Yeah, so imagine...
What?
This is hard to explain. So this sort of combs going down and forming a track for the red ball. Let's just focus on the red ball for now, because the ping pong ball comes into play later. So this red ball going on top of these structures with these combs that go down and form a track. I saw that in a K'NEX ball machine when they were initially not in the top position. I believe they were in a flat position initially and then went down to the bottom, not from the very top. So they were more like this.
Yeah.
But I saw that in the K'NEX ball machine. I think it was the same K'NEX ball machine that had the crane mechanism I was inspired by as well. So that was like a kind of a 2-for-1 combo right there, which also explains why this was built, I believe, around the same time as the Domino World 2020 machine, which had that in it as well, because this is another one of the clips that was built in 2020. But I essentially took that idea, and it kind of reminded me of... I guess in a sense, it kind of reminded me of like the X like V or V like separation trick a little bit, where the ball gets lifted up and stuff like that. And I think that kind of led me towards the idea of what if I have the combs initially at an upright position. I use the red ball for them to all go down at once to create that motion, and then I create that motion a second time by using like the sort of basic. The classic idea of the heavy ball lowers the track, the light ball allows it to raise back up, but then apply that to this like weird little comb shaped thing, and so obviously the red ball can weigh down the unit of little prongs, and then the light ball gets lifted up by them.
How do you even... I mean, I know you just finished explaining it, but still, like, how do you think of this, man? Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like K'NEX ball machines are just one of those things that like every once in a while there's like some element of emotion that just like sparks some semblance of, oh, that's kind of smexy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of it too is just that my brain does not ever allow balls to roll in anything that's not track.
Yeah.
My brain's like, that's not track. That's no.
Yeah.
Illegal. This is... Wow.
It's fun.
It's really fun. It's really smart, too. And you can immediately tell what's happening. It's visually kind of overwhelming with all the K'NEX, but as soon as you see it, you're like, oh, I get it. It's not as because like this frame is like, oh, God, oh, no.
Oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it suddenly becomes, they all move together, and you're like, I got it. That's okay. It just immediately makes sense. There's an elegance in that for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Boing.
A little bounce. And you notice just a little tiny element of polish in this video is that pretty much every single way the ball enters the hoop is different. So in just about every single clip, the ball will enter the hoop in a different way than the previous or the next, which just adds a little element of spice.
So the next one,
the zip line.
This guy.
The zip line trick.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you before that I had made a zip line, or I was working on a zip line trick. And the reason why that's interesting is because I don't normally do that at all. In fact, like the last... if you don't count the thing, which I don't really, in like Reactica 2019, that was like the wobbly thing. I don't really count that as a zip line. It was more of like a weird slider. If you don't count that, I've only really made 2 zip line tricks before. Neither one are like that great. They were very old. One of them was in Magnet collab with Burlag Awesome. And the other one was in 11i3. So they're both kind of ancient. But the thing about zip lines is that they're just, it's hard to think of like an interesting motion that you can apply to a zip line that doesn't involve especially that doesn't involve moving the string itself. Because like, keep in mind, this trick doesn't do anything to the string. It's literally all built into the zip line mechanism itself. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing.
Also the boxes. Yep.
Yep.
Super useful.
Very,
couldn't do this
useful.
without, or you could with Kinects, but
I
it
basically
looks,
couldn't. I basically couldn't with Kinects because it would be too.
too unstable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing with zip lines.
Because it needs
so much
really,
tension.
really. You need a ton of tension. I had a massive weight off the side of the other end of the zip line.
Well, I have you can do it with weight. There's other ways to get tension.
Yeah.
I'm partial to using Kinects and then like winding it around the rod and then locking it in.
Or you could use elastic bands or some. You could do a number of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a smart little mechanism. Obviously, the premise of the trick is easy to understand. The pulley rolls along the zipline pulley. It was basically, it comes from the idea came from the notion that pulleys, when you build a zip line like out of Kinects, the pulley will roll down or it will spin as the zip line is going down the thing. And utilizing that spin to power a different motion or power something else was sort of the idea. And so I built a little gear chain off of the main pulley. I made sure to put a rubber band around the pulley so that it would have more friction on the string. And then I was surprised when it just kind of worked. I had to balance it a little bit, but it wasn't that tricky to do.
Now, what's this like diagonal line?
What do you mean?
That's like this thing.
That's for support because of how much tension was necessary.
So it's holding up the boxes.
Yeah, it's helping. There's one on the other side too. Auto tilt. Also, another example of utilizing. I mean, I probably would have done it regardless, but utilizing one of your 50 techniques was in the little rubber band launcher that launches the ball up those wooden tracks. So it like shoots it, goes, bam. But I just used one of those like locking rods or whatever, which is for the most part standard, but it's helpful. It's helpful to have guides that tell you that sometimes.
Kinects rod lock?
Or I don't remember what it's called, but it's literally just using a rod for tension to help release. It's a very small rod underneath.
Or is it the compression rod?
Compression rod, yeah, that's it. But yeah, just another little example of your techniques appearing.
Nice. In their natural habitat.
Of course.
Yeah.
In the Invention 11 machines.
Their natural habitat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was saying during the reaction, there's a precision. Because, like, I could picture you, or not, maybe not you, but this trick existing where there's just, like, something that flicks the track to make it spin as it goes down the zip line, and then it just, like, the timing works out how it lands here.
Yeah.
Maybe a cool trick, but it's precision because it's specifically the gear driving the turning. So theoretically, it would work if you just moved it up and down. It would rotate the specific amount.
Yeah, or like a slider or something like that. Yeah. It wouldn't need the zip line. Whereas in this case, the zip line is essential in order to, I guess, in this case, unlock the motion of having the track spin while the zip line is moving. If it wasn't a zip line, it wouldn't work, basically. Which is another reason why I don't normally build zip lines, because like thinking of an idea that like a zip line unlocking another motion is very, very rare. Which is why you don't really see original zip line tricks that often. You usually just see someone put a random object down zip line. There it is. Or like moving the string of the zip line into different positions. That's also relatively common. But seeing someone actually just make the zip line itself essential to unlock a new motion is rare. Anyway, here's my favorite trick.
Yeah. This is really cool.
Yeah, so this is basically the quintessential example of using a very like common, simple motion, or simple in quotations, in motion to unlock a new trick. And in this case, it was having these tracks that align as a 90-degree track initially, and then have them essentially represent clock hands. So the bottom track moves along with the pulley that the string is pulling, and then there's a little mechanism with a rubber band and some gears that allows the top track to spin at the same rate as the rod, which is spinning slower. And it creates this sort of clock hand effect of like the hour hand and the minute hand rotating at different speeds. And then it was just a matter of getting those things to line up so that I could have two different positions where it was necessary for it to unwind all the way to form the second 90-degree track for the ball to roll down.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get it. Brain hurts, though. I don't. I could picture myself thinking of the idea of like making the clock like two hands of the clock be tracks that rotate different amounts, but I don't know how I ever could have. I probably would have discarded the idea after realizing that you need an axle to move at two different speeds.
Yeah.
And like, how do you make one rotate independently?
That was tricky. It was actually a lot of fun to figure out.
I can picture that being fun.
Yeah. It was a lot. This was probably one of the most fun ones to build, which I guess is another reason why I favor it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun making that mechanism. It was it took some work for sure, but I'm very happy with the final result and the speeds and the fact that they actually do line up in two essentially symmetrical positions is very satisfying.
Yeah, it super is.
But yeah, and then the part of once again why I love this trick so much is just the idea of like the clock hand motion or whatever. Like you see it basically every day. Like if you look at a clock, or like it's used in video games all the time to make like aligning platforms and whatnot. You see it literally everywhere. But having that motion be necessary to unlock something else once again is very cool, because this is a motion that you don't normally see in a machine. In fact, this is an example where it's less the pathing and more the motion.
It's totally it's the motion and the mechanics
and the mechanism. Yeah, that hasn't really been seen before.
This is definitely one of those where it's not just existing components arranged in an original way.
Exactly.
This is like
it's an original mechanism.
Original everything.
Yep.
Oh, but again, it's so clever and genius in all the right ways, because it's something that you immediately know and recognize. And there is a little bit of a, oh, why didn't I think of that to it? Not quite as much as that other one, but there is definitely a little, yeah. I mean, just the fact that it's the original gear that's powering the others and causing, it's not two separate pulley systems or something. It's just the
original pulley.
It's always just, it's the gear powering the other gears, powering the back to the original axle.
Yeah, the pulley spins the rubber band thing, and then that connects to the gears.
Yep. No, I figured it out. Oh my god.
Oh, and this was the first clip, the first trick that I used your special pulley method in, because obviously it has to spin for a really long time.
I noticed
to get the full.
I noticed it as soon as I saw
it
there.
There it is, in all her beauty.
Yeah. Oh man, I could watch this forever. Is that a rubber band there joining the two small gears or small wheels?
The small pulleys, yes, that's what allows them. It's sort of, I mean, for convenience sake, but also just to make sure that like using the small ones was necessary to get the angles to actually line up in two positions that matched.
Man, it's so smooth. How is it even mounted?
How is it mounted?
Like to the side of the track, all weirdly.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I guess there's probably some going under the track.
Yeah, there's some extra security with some like connects rod or whatnot doohickeys. The actual top of the rod is cut off, so it's just I can place the connector right at the very top, and then that's how the top track is secured so well, and the bottom track is basically the same, but it's just off of the wheel or off of the pulley.
Yeah, this is incredible. It's just so compact, and nothing is, like every element is necessary. There's no wasted space, no wasted mechanism. It's designed perfectly. I mean, that classic design adage of the perfect design is like when you keep removing stuff until you can't remove anything else. And this is exactly that.
Except it's the opposite. It's Joel is lazy, so he doesn't want to add stuff. So how do I minimize the amount of stuff I have to build?
Well, however you get there, the product is the same.
Same destination. I got those sleek wooden blocks.
All right, we will move on, but man.
Also, this ball lift is
the ball lift is awesome.
It's a funky little ball lift chain.
Nice.
And it's the actual trigger for it is the exact same as that other funky ball lift at near the beginning of the video, which is just a latch directly underneath that the ball pushes on like a pressure plate, and then it dislodges.
So cool. I mean, maybe that one is my favorite.
It was probably the most fun to build. It's definitely mine.
Yeah.
Woo! Clip 8, let's go!
So, welcome back to Making Connections. This episode of Reactica 2021.
Yeah, welcome back. We're just going to listen to what Joel has to say back in 2020 about the process of making this trick.
I didn't, I don't know if I ever left a comment on this video, but this was, I could not stop thinking about this trick for months. I mean, I still have not stopped thinking about this trick in certain ways. I mean, this is just, again, an example of something that is not just components arranged in a completely new way. This is completely new components arranged in a completely new way. I don't know how to think of ideas like this. I just don't know how. Because all of my ideas feel very... I don't know, very like samey if you really distill them, and then something like this comes along and it's just like I never could have thought of this. How do I become a better machine builder so that I can think of ideas that are totally new like this? And how do what can I do to make that more likely? So I still have not stopped thinking about this trick.
Wow.
Because it really makes me want to improve as an artist. And I still haven't figured out the answer to that question, but just knowing that I never would have thought of this is what really inspired me to... I don't know. It hasn't inspired me to do anything, but it's inspired me to think about...
Well, I'm appreciative that you really like it that much. Yeah, I mean, to me, if you really want to know the secret to thinking of a trick like this, it's, the connects wheel look kind of cool.
Right. Right. And the fact that it is that basic, that easy for you is...
And then my brain
impressive.
noodles make some weird connection. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
And when you explained it in the video, the reaction video, it kind of loses the magic a little bit because you sort of see behind the scenes a little, and you realize I can see how someone could arrive at this.
Yeah.
But when you see the final product alone, you just, that's what I was just saying. The initial reaction is I've never seen that before ever. How do you think of that?
Yeah, the destination is almost never the very first thing someone thinks of.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because my tricks often are. 90% of the time, the final trick is precisely the thing that was in my head.
From the very beginning? Like when you initially thought of it? Oh, wow.
Basically. I mean, not necessarily down to the connection level, but down to exactly the ball paths, exactly the trick structure, pretty much the trick shape. And there are some notable exceptions that I could mention, but 90% of the time... especially screen link clips, but even in general, I know exactly what the trick is going to do and look like before I build it. Because otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to make. I don't feel comfortable even beginning without knowing what I'm building.
Yeah,
sometimes things don't go as planned. And then in that case, I have to start over. And sometimes I can salvage the parts that I had built and maybe turn them into something else, but I still need to have a full-fledged mental picture before progressing past that point. I never build anything without having a very clear mental picture. Now, again, the mental picture doesn't always come to fruition for any number of reasons, but when that happens, it just means that I have to develop a new mental picture. I never build something without having full confidence. And I guess that's maybe not that unique, but it definitely results in pretty much every trick I make being basically exactly what I knew it was going to be. So a trick like this that kind of develops and through improvisation and through being and just taking inspiration in different ways and just sort of seeing where things lead you. That's an experience totally alien to me.
Wow.
And working with Joseph a lot of the time, he really stressed the importance of play.
Yeah, I was about to say the scientific term for that is called goofing around.
And this is, a very Rube Goldberg approach to things, where you just sort of grab a weird object and sort of investigate its properties and see if it rolls in a weird way or flips in a weird way, or if you can attach something to it and make some kind of new motion. And I notice a lot of motions that people who do things more in the Rube Goldberg style, like Joseph in particular, but even like Steve, and pretty much everybody does it sometimes. But a lot of those motions are discovered through play, of just sort of taking an object and playing around with it and seeing what kind of stuff you can discover.
Yeah, and I will preface that this trick wasn't discovered like purely through play. There was also another idea in the back of my mind that was already like an idea I had thought of before, that I'd already basically planned out before, that involved cups and the ball not dropping out and then dropping out of cups. So I had some like basis or some like level of direction in the back of my mind already. It wasn't just like sporadic. Oh,
well, right. Yeah. But I mean, I bring it up because it was one of the things that I was taught when I was working with Joseph, and it was pretty much the only thing that just didn't stick at all. Like, it is still a very weird thing for me to just play around with stuff and just sort of see what happens. It doesn't feel like I could not convince myself that I could ever discover something nearly as cool as something that I could think of. It just feels like I'd play around with stuff and I'm like, that's not that cool. It's just like, I don't know. So the fact that there was some element of building it without fully knowing what it was going to be is kind of totally foreign to me.
Wow.
So that's why that's part of why I like this so much. But again, it's also the originality of it.
Clothespin launch. Launch.
Yep.
Another Lyle staple.
Yeah.
And then we got the big honkin' chonker.
So this one, I have no idea how you conceptualized this, but I guess I can see the root of it, because it rotates around the inside.
Yeah, it was just sort of, it wasn't like, this is another idea where it wasn't really fully formed when I started building it. I remember showing you the wheel on a video call that I was making, and it really was just a very basic idea of wanting the ball to roll along the inside of the wheel, like as a path, and develop that into some sort of trick. And then also the idea of, like, once again, rotating structure, incorporate that into having a rotating structure somehow, and then obviously add the element of like the actual idea coming into fruition, which was the idea that it utilizes the entire path along the inside of the circumference of the wheel initially, and then as soon as that path completes, the weight shifts and the wheel drops down onto the second path, and it allows the ball to complete the full path again and then get dispensed. And so what's interesting about this is that while the thing is rotating the first time, there isn't really basically any security on the, I mean, like, obviously
because of the way it rolls into a corner.
Yeah, it's just rolling into a corner basically. It's just, I mean, the corners themselves are obviously secured, but
right.
As soon as it starts rolling the other way, it can drop down pretty much immediately.
Yep. Yeah. So cool. Perfect use of the marble tracks as well. It's just the
as the bases for the rotating octagonal prism.
Yeah. There's your big board too.
Yep. First and last trick. Using that big board. An elevator.
I don't know. There's not much to say about it other than
It's just fun.
wow, big, awesome, cool.
Yeah.
It's just cool.
Yeah.
It's just really cool.
I'm just glad that it works as a trick, because that was kind of the main thing that I was concerned about. Because, like, once again,
Wait, what? What do you mean, why wouldn't it?
I mean, because the idea I had going into it wasn't fully formed out. It was literally just like ball rolling on inside of thing, and then maybe it rotate. I didn't have that until I had that moment of clarity of, oh, it would be really cool if it spanned the other way first, weight shift, drop, then it rolls.
Wait, so you didn't even know that it was going to go both ways?
I had no idea.
What?
I had zero clue.
How do you go about devoting all the time to building this if you don't have that idea?
Because I wanted to test out making a rotating structure. And I was just like, I need to elevate this some way. While I was building it, I was like, what? I need to think of a really clever way to elevate this that I can pull off. And yeah, it was that moment of clarity of, oh, I can have it literally disengage and drop off.
I'm not able to comprehend that. That just seems incredible. Like, to me, if I made this, I would need to know. The idea would have come from the motion first, of the idea of rolling around the inside when the wheel itself is rotating in place, and then rolling around the other way when it rotates the other way, and maybe it would have come from not the idea of it disconnecting and then rolling like along a path. Maybe wouldn't have been part of it. But before I started building it, it would have had to be. But just the initial seed of an idea would have just been, it goes, let's call it 360 degrees instead of calculating whatever 7/8 of the way is. So it goes around 7/8 of the way, and then goes back the other 7/8. And then the idea would have been like, okay, well, don't just do that going one way and the other way. That doesn't do anything. It just puts it back to where it started. So how do you like make it two different things? So the real elegance is that basically there are two ways for wheels to roll, which is just rolling in place like a Ferris wheel, or rolling along a surface like wheels on a car or something. And using those to unlock this sort of multi-way thing would have absolutely needed to be the seed idea before I started making it. Like, that would have been the thing that made me go, that's the idea. Now I can mill it.
What's even funnier now is that I mentioned that my initial idea I had while I was starting to build the trick was the ball rolling on the inside, like the circumference of the thing. I didn't think of that until just before I started building the trick. In fact, the original idea was literally just octagonal structure. And I was like, and then I got.
So what was the idea at the moment you actually built something?
That was the moment I started building was the centrifugal, or not centrifugal, the ball rolling around the inside. It was just the idea of the ball rolling around the inside, and then I already had the idea of octagonal structure, maybe rolling down those marble tracks I had, and then combining those two, and then adding the trick, which is the disconnect and the
makes a
double
little
direction.
more sense.
Yeah,
because I've seen, not with an octagon, but with a circle, like a tape roll or something with a slice cut out. This is a classic Beeplecrap trick of it just rolls, the tape roll just rolls, and then it goes through the small gap, and it's timed perfectly so that the ball enters or exits at that point. That I've seen, which is basically the second half of this. But what they don't do is, the complexity involved with making it rotate the other way in place, then dropping down and then rolling. But, yeah, that would have absolutely needed to be what, in my head before starting to build, is the dual part. Because that's what would have made it click. Yeah. Every trick that I make needs a click moment.
It's interesting. It's interesting because we have the same exact, what is it? We have the same exact standards in terms of the final destination. We both have the exact same because obviously I agree. I think that it needs to have that click moment in order for me to feel confident about it. It's just that I don't have to reach that level of confidence before I start building. I can reach it gradually while I'm building. And if I don't reach it, then I can scrap the idea.
That is crazy.
Because sometimes that's necessary.
Just
like
go into it
every once in a while, you get a trick, and it's just like I'm not gonna immediately be confident about it because I'm not even I don't have that high level confidence in my like machine building skills as is. But like I just need to develop as it goes along sometimes, and that's how you get tricks like this. Because otherwise, there are some tricks that are just like really really difficult to just think of that you kind of have to play around. It's the I imagine that Joseph Machines probably has a lot of moments like that as well, where it's like he wouldn't.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's kind of what he was trying to teach me. Is just like there are a lot of the things that he does are things that are impossible to think of, and they just have to come from sort of being observant about the world around you and noticing weird motions and weird objects and weird properties of objects. But yeah, the stuff that we do is not quite as much foreign object based and not quite as much play based. It's mostly manufactured stuff that we do, but it's still the play element is still something that I am not at all good at. Going in without a full idea is just crazy to me, but it results in some awesome stuff for other people.
It's definitely a risk, but you can make some cool stuff if you're willing to go through with it sometimes.
Yeah, and the specific way that it drops too is really smart. It's just a very, very elegant way of doing it.
Yeah, and then there's also just an element of like my brain sometimes can't handle like the full scale of like what a trick is going to be as well. Like it's literally hard for me to process the full thing. So it would literally never be a trick otherwise, if that makes sense, because it wouldn't like that clicking moment wouldn't happen sometimes without that element of play, or without a little bit of kind of working as I'm going. It's sort of a step-by-step thing. Like you build one thing and then I can think about another thing and then I can think about this.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, but I feel like how can you possibly ever know that they're all going to fit together elegantly and not just
sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I definitely don't know. I rely on a lot of luck, which I guess in this case is just my building ability, and the laws of physics. I guess physics and math. They tell a story.
Yeah.
Just
about to say that.
I basically rely on essentially, I rely on my ability to improvise in situations where I don't have a 100% clear idea.
Wow. So we just got to the last clip. That was the last one.
Yeah.
So is there anything else to mention overall about the project?
I guess an interesting thing to mention is that when I was building the project, I was thinking about the idea of just like one ball path tricks in general and how to categorize them. And I kind of came up with like, there's basically 3 ways you can generalize a one ball path trick. There's a ball translator, so a trick that just moves a ball in an interesting way. There's a track trick, so a trick that moves a track in an interesting way, and then the ball goes down the track. And then
so that would be like more of a pathing trick.
Yeah, basically a pathing, or to me, I define that as a track trick, because then the third one, it was like a mixture of both. It's literally a track trick and a ball trick, or a ball translator simultaneously.
So that would be a path.
And the reason I'm mentioning that is because when I was going through my video, I realized that I literally built 3 of each. So there's exactly 3 ball translators, 3 track tricks, and 3 hybrids in this video, which is kind of cool.
Okay. So the track tricks. Oh boy.
The clock is a track trick. This trick right here that we're looking at right now is a track trick. And the other track trick was the zip line.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, the ones
the
where
hybrids.
It's not about the ball.
The hybrids are the tube, because the ball is being translated through the tube, but the tube is also moving as part of it's a track. The crazy comb connects thing, and then the moving wheel. They're all used as tracks, but they're also ball translators. And then the 3 ball translators are kind of pretty obvious. There's the cup and ball, the spinny, the bow and arrow, and the cup wheel.
Yeah. That's it. Okay. Yeah. I hadn't considered that they really have difference, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I mean, when you when you work on a video for nearly 2 years worth of time, you start thinking of
so
ways
it's
to
kind of one where
categorize
the
things.
ball does stuff, and the other one where it does stuff around the ball.
Essentially, and then one where it fuses those two things.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching this episode of Making Connections. As always, if you'd like to watch this episode from the beginning, you can find it in your subscriptions feed or on my channel page for the next week. After that, the only way to find it is in the Making Connections playlist. The link for that is in the description. Or if you're okay with an audio-only version, the show is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and other podcast platforms. You can go to anchor.fm/makingconnections for more information. Thank you again to the Invention 11 for joining me on the show today. If you like this episode, leave a comment down below telling me what you thought. And you can subscribe to my channel so you can subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next episode. That's it for me. I'm JackofAllSpace98. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you in the next episode of Making Connections.